Good evening, it's 7 o'clock, Plan Commission meeting, City of Marshfield, Tuesday, November 19th, in the City Hall chambers. Call to order, roll call.
Mayor T-Strake?
Here.
Councilmember O'Reilly? Here. Commissioner Piles?
Here.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Here.
Commissioner Caprillion?
Here.
Commissioner Frederick?
Here.
Commissioner Meyer? We are a full crew tonight.
Thank you. And introduction of our new member. Welcome Rita Meyer to the Plan Commission. And we'll start with Steve, if you would just say who you are and what your role is. Or what you do.
Well, I'm city administrator. I think we've talked before, but I'm also taking care of the Plan Commission since we don't have staff. I do that working with Bryce Hembrook, our contract planner from SEH. Glad to be at the Plan Commission meetings.
Lois T-Strake, Mayor. Thank you, Rita, for agreeing to do this.
Mike O'Reilly, District 9 Alderman. Thank you also.
John Caprillion, Plan Commission member.
Jake Bernardi, Planning Commission member. And Kim Frederick, Planning Commission member. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate the welcome. I've been around Marshfield a very long time, 33 years, as a matter of fact. I was born and raised in central Minnesota, and was educated in Minnesota, and then moved here in 91 and raised my 3 kids. And I worked in this city, and I had a business in this city, was on a number of boards in this city, very involved in the community, and I'm happy to be on this commission. The first time actually working with the city other than volunteering for voting.
Thank you. And Franklin, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Yep, I see that Bryce is here too, yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Franklin Piles. I've been in Marshfield now for 6 or 7 years. And I'm just a retired guy who saw an ad in the paper that the mayor needed some help, so I volunteered.
Thank you. And Bryce, if you'd let us know who you are, we have a new member on our Plan Commission, Rita Meyer.
Yeah, welcome to the Plan Commission, Rita. I'm Bryce Hembrook. I'm the contract planner for the city. I've been helping out in the last few years while there's been some staff turnover, and then before that, I was the city planner and then the zoning administrator for about 4.5, 5 years. So welcome to the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Item number 4, approval of agenda. Mr. Frederick moves.
Second.
Mr. Caprillion seconds. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Identify possible conflicts of interest. I'm sorry, approval of minutes from October 15th, 2024 meeting. Yeah, because the first one was to approve the agenda. I'm not sure why that was on there, but yeah.
We've had that.
Okay, Okay, so now we need a motion to approve the minutes from October 15th, 2024. Sorry.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. O'Reilly and Mr. Caprillion. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6, identify possible conflict of interest. Please be advised per City Policy 3.3.0, 3.340, that any member of this body shall declare a conflict if they have an interest, financial or otherwise direct or indirect, or engage in a business or transaction or professional activity, or incur an obligation of any nature that is in conflict with the proper discharge of the body's official duties. I see no conflicts of interest. Move on to item number 7, citizen comment. We have a citizen comment. Please come to the podium, and there's a little button to turn on. And state your name and address.
I think I may have left it on already. If it's red, then it's on.
Okay. It looks like it's on. Okay, perfect.
Krista Popowich and Robert Popowich, 306 West Jefferson Street here in Marshfield.
We're here because we applied for a conditional use permit. We're putting up vinyl fencing and privacy fence, and we would like to have 3 sections of it go up to an 8-foot level and additional privacy. It would be between the houses. We would be taking down the existing chain link and having that put up so that there is a visual barrier from our neighbor's property, from her deck and 2-bedroom windows, basically. Just, that's all we're here for, is we're trying to work with Bob Larson. This is what we were told we were supposed to do.
Okay, is that good?
That's all we have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Should we shut this off then?
Absolutely. Item number 8, conditional use permit request by Krista Popovich for an exception to the fence height requirements for a proposed fence located at 306 West Jefferson Street, parcel 33-03838, zone SR6, single-family resident, presenter Bryce Hembrook, planner.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll first give a little bit of background as to why we're back at the Plan Commission for this item. So at the last Plan Commission meeting, the Plan Commission had discussed this, and at the time there were 2 motions. One was, I believe, a motion to table was the first one. That motion failed, and then there was a second motion to deny, and that one also failed. I think it was a 3-3 vote. And so after that had occurred, you know, there was a little bit of confusion on my end. I thought it might have failed, but then Steve and I sat down with the city attorney just to make sure that the proper procedure occurred. And with looking at our zoning code, the Plan Commission ultimately makes a report to the Common Council. And so after talking it through with the city attorney, we decided that ultimately there was no report given because there was no motion. And so we took the request to the Common Council at their last meeting, and the Common Council had decided to send this item back to the Plan Commission to get a report, a finding of facts for the item, and especially with having a new Plan Commission member. Before there was a 3-3 vote. Now there's 7 members, so they also kind of wanted the new full Plan Commission to weigh in on this. That way that there's more of a decision on whether to approve or deny. And so that's ultimately why we're back before the Plan Commission. The applicant kind of went over some of the information, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but still want to provide some information for our new Plan Commission members. So the subject property is located on West Jefferson Street. It is near Chestnut and Jefferson, and there is a proposed fence to go along the property line on the east side. I have in my notes from Bob Larson that the fence will be approximately 24 feet long for that 8-foot fencing. And then I believe that there will be more white vinyl fence that will meet all the other requirements in the fence code. So our fence code does allow for exceptions to the fence code requirements if they are granted through a conditional use permit. And so we provide some of the information as to, you know, where it says that in the code. One of the things I talked about to the Plan Commission at last month's meeting was the way that conditional use permits were seen before. So in about 6 or 7 years ago, conditional use permits kind of changed in state law. There's new requirements. Generally, it's a little bit harder. It is harder to deny conditional use permits, but our code was adopted, or the city's code was adopted in 2013, which predates those requirements. So our code hasn't really updated to really reflect the true meaning of what the conditional use permit would be. So there was some discussion at last month's meeting of, you know, should we be able to grant exceptions to this, or is there a different way? But as of right now, this is the procedure that the code lays out. So we are following that method. In the past, just for some background information, there have been some fence code exceptions granted. Some of those were due to steep slopes. Some of those were due to, you know, being by like a pool, so there's some additional privacy, or if the backyard is along like a major road, we've seen some of those granted. So that's just kind of a little background on what the Plan Commission has approved in the past. And then the the staff report kind of goes into greater detail. And this was provided by Bob Larson, the zoning administrator and code enforcement officer. Ultimately, from staff's perspective, he thought that the request was reasonable and that the staff recommendation was to approve the conditional use permit with the following exceptions and conditions. Number one, the applicant is permitted to have an 8-foot privacy fence located in the rear yard as presented on the site plan. The side yard and rear yard, I should say. Number two, the extension installation of a 8-foot fencing beyond what is shown on the site plan or with materials other than what was submitted by the applicant will require additional plan commission council review. Number three, minor adjustments to the site plan may be approved administratively provided no other exceptions are required. And I would also just like to add that for any motion to approve or motion to deny, I would highly recommend that there is a justification stated for, why the motion's being made. Just because generally when there's a motion to approve or deny a conditional use permit, you want to be very specific as to why that's being done. So that is all that I have at this time.
Thank you, Bryce. So would somebody like to, yes, Mike?
I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit with the additional requirements that Bryce listed. And I would make that motion due to the privacy request and the close proximity of those houses. I think it's a logical request that we've approved in the past for the same reason. So that would be my motion on it.
I'll second that motion.
Second by John. Any other discussion or comments or questions?
I do have a few comments.
I'd like to comment. Hello, am I on?
Yes. Mr. Piles?
Okay. Last time we had the neighbor make a presentation. Is anyone here, either the applicant or the neighbor?
The applicant actually came up to the podium during a citizen comment.
And with respect to the neighbor, I know the neighbor, but with respect to the neighbor was at the previous plan commission meeting and the council meeting on November 12th and is aware of this meeting as far as I know, but is not here this evening.
Well, when the neighbor was here, the neighbor pointed out that the distance between the property line where the fence would be and her house was 7 feet. And that therefore an 8-foot fence, if there was damage and it blew over, it would fall into her house. And to me, that is a sufficient reason, according to the this bylaw issue, that one has to have sufficient reason. That would be a sufficient reason, I would think, for the plan commission to say no to an 8-foot fence. Now, I think in its consideration also, the plan commission, while there's this claim of privacy, there was a reason why 6-foot fences were considered adequate for privacy, except for things like a swimming pool where people are dressed, in swimming suits and so on and so forth. You can't really see over a 6-foot fence. To me, no justification has been made to the plan commission as to why an 8-foot fence is desired or needed. 8 foot, you have to be on a step ladder to look over it. So why is an 8-foot fence needed at all? And the fact that the neighbor has expressed concern and brought evidence to the plan commission that damage could be done because there was some kind of damage to her house that occurred. I can't remember exactly the details though, but from something falling from that property onto her house. Seems to me that these things outweigh the desire of this neighbor to have this added quote unquote privacy of an 8-foot fence. So I feel like the request of, this is obviously a disagreement between neighbors, but I'm not sure. In fact, I don't believe that we should give precedence, I should say, to the neighbor who wants to build an 8-foot fence when the one other neighbor is concerned about potential damage from that fence. So Yeah, I'm speaking in opposition to the motion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also have a comment. Thank you, Mr. Piles. You stated what you believe is a compelling reason to deny the fence. And the people who are requesting this are using the compelling reason of a visual barrier because they want to block their neighbors, correct? I drove by there just to take a look at it in addition to the pictures, and those homes are in very close proximity. And I have a question about aesthetics. There may be another compelling reason to deny, which would be aesthetics. An 8-foot fence would in fact go almost all the way up to the lowest part of the roof of the house, the soffit part. And the yards are very small. The homes are very close together. I'm not one for fences anyway, and I prefer, shrubs and bushes and things like that. But the 6-foot fence, I do believe would provide privacy. My question is aesthetics a compelling reason? Codes are made for a reason. The code is 6 foot, so maybe part of that is aesthetics. An 8-foot fence is very high. It blocks light. It's not, if you know what feng shui is, it doesn't have round corners. Anyway, that's a question that I have. Aesthetics.
Bryce, this is Steve. Do you want to take a stab at that? I might have a comment or two, but thoughts with respect to that concern as far as what's a reason, a good reason for denial?
In terms of what was stated?
In terms of the aesthetic piece, I mean, we think of what the state law in 2018 and some of the things that have come from that, the question of aesthetics and that impact on the neighboring property owner as a potential justification, just trying to get your initial read.
Yeah, I think, essentially the way that it's worded is that there should be substantial, let me see if I have the exact wording. Of course, it's not in the, okay, it's almost always in there. There should be substantial evidence to prove, a denial. And I think you could certainly point to aesthetics as a possibility if there's justification. Now, I think in this case, they're proposing a white vinyl fence, which I think that they're proposing 6 feet for the rest of the white vinyl fence and keeping that same material. So it's not like they're using a different, if they were going to do a 6-foot vinyl, in one part of the property, but then do an 8-foot chain link, you could maybe say the aesthetics, it's not matching the rest. I think that would be a little bit stronger than just saying that the aesthetics wouldn't match, but I think you could make a case that there is some concern with aesthetics. I think one other thing that comes to mind, I know in the past, I haven't personally had issues with this, but in the past there used to be a lot of discussion on shade, and so I look at this property, and if you add a fence a little bit higher, that kind of blocks the light and the shade from the neighbor's windows. However, I live in a house that's very close to my neighbor. They block a lot of the side of the house. It's really not a huge deal, but I do know that in the past, access to sunlight has been something that's been argued in the past too. And I think if the Plan Commission is able to make a compelling case and agree upon that, I think that could be reasonable. I don't know the exact parameters of what exactly would be considered substantial for aesthetics, but I think as long as you create a clear, a compelling reason for it and it's agreed upon by the Plan Commission, it could be seen as substantial. I hope I answered that question. I felt like I kind of went around on that.
Yeah, and I feel like a phrase that's been out there for a while, maybe it's not referred to in the 2018 state law, but is adverse impact. I know historically we've always looked to see whether the proposal creates an adverse impact on neighboring properties. And yet, I guess you can debate what constitutes an adverse impact.
I have another comment. I was actually speaking, can I talk? I was speaking with someone who had a neighbor who put up a fence, and I believe, is it 6 or 8? I don't remember. I don't recall now. But she did say that the sunlight was blocking her plant. And so when you're talking about sunlight and somebody who grows plants, that's important to me. I have a lot of plants in my yard. So that may be something to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? We have a nomination on the floor.
Well, I would like to ask another question.
Certainly, Franklin.
Who is the adjudicator? In other words, we're saying we have to make a case, et cetera, et cetera. It would seem like, make a case to whom? To Steve? Or to whom? Who is the adjudicator as to which? I mean, it seems to me that the way the statute is worded, as long as we have reason, that's enough. Because the statute also says that we can't do it just from a personal preference. In other words, that can't do it from I'm not quoting here because I'm not looking at the statute, but I believe it's personal preference. In other words, someone says, I just don't want that. And basically the statute, as I would understand it, is an anti-NIMBY statute, not in my backyard. So in other words, someone has a proposal, you can't just say, I don't want it because I don't want those people or that thing nearby with no reason for it. And it's pointed out that, there are a number of things that people might say, well, it might increase traffic, but they don't have a traffic study or something like that. But here, in this case, which I agree, this should not be a conditional use, not at all. But in this case, it seems to me, as long as the Plan Commission, should it decide to defeat the motion, but as long as the Plan Commission has reasons, and it's not just, we don't like fences, that's enough. We've met the standard, the condition of the statute. So I'd like to say that. So it seems to me, light, the concerns of the neighbor should be very much a factor in our decision. And the neighbor is against this. And the neighbor is concerned about light. The neighbor is concerned about possible damage to their property. I don't know, possible other factors might be brought in. But it seems to me that for our request, which is really unusual, 8-foot fence, that's enough to say no, a 6-foot fence should suffice for you. Okay.
I think to start with your comment about adjudicating, I mean, it's not like we're planning on this ending up in a court of law. The thought is that if you make findings of fact as to why you, recommend a denial, and if it goes through, then at some point, if the applicant feels aggrieved, they might, question whether or not at some higher level, if they wanted to take it farther, whether or not that was a legitimate reason for denial. And I think that, the throwback to the old days before the 2018 law was, you'd have, like you said it yourself, these allegations that, we can't allow this home occupation in this neighborhood because there's too many cars, too much traffic. And the state said, what does that mean? You got to demonstrate how many cars there are and show some evidence. You can't just say there's too much traffic for the neighborhood. And it's a little bit different with this fence case. And I think you said last meeting that you have questions as to whether, and you said it here again tonight, whether or not this really ought to be a conditional use permit type of topic, like some of the other things you have before you. but it's here before us right now. So I think it's just whether or not you can make a defensible case as to why you would recommend denial based upon the impact on a neighboring property or properties.
My question is, people who want to build the fence in this photo that is before us, they're the ones with the driveway, right? And the neighbor is the little house that we see, right?
Correct.
So in that case, we can obviously see, this is the evidence, is this photo. This photo is the evidence that an 8-foot fence would be almost intrusive on her property. She looks out the window, she can't see anything but the fence. If the fence falls over, it's obvious it would hit her house. And it's obvious that the fence would also impact, the light in that little strip of yard there. So there's your evidence, is the photo itself. The photo itself shows that that the neighbor who opposes the fence has a case.
Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. What I'm going to say is, for starters, we can't make decisions on hypotheticals. If you look at where that garage is located, that could also fall and damage something. What do we do with a tree? How far are we going to push government coming in and telling you what you can do with your property? Now, if a tree sheds too much light on a neighbor's property and they can't put a flower bed in where they want it, is that their choice? Can we stop them? These things, the 6-foot fence height, I've never heard reasoning for what that was for. It was a height that was picked, is kind of what it comes down to. We have we're almost setting ourselves up for a problem if we don't approve this when we've done it for the same purpose in previous situations. I don't feel any of the logic that's being brought forward can really be used, because you create the same scenario. If someone, you look at our codes as far as building a garage, you can build a tall garage. What if that casts shade on somebody else's yard? I can't wrap my head around the mentality, and I think we're overstepping our bounds with this. And that's why I made the motion. I think it's a logical move. There seems to be a very compelling reason that they want to do it. And that's my stance on it.
I think just to
What
add,
is the compelling reason, Councilman? Councilman, what is the compelling reason?
Privacy. You've heard that before.
I think if I can just add, it's maybe neither here nor there at this point, but most of the cities I've worked in or been around have had 6-foot high. It's not magic, but I think 6 feet is thought to be a general privacy fence height. And that's why so many cities have adopted it in general for what's allowed in residential neighborhoods. That doesn't mean it can't be something different, but for some reason that's been deemed to be a point where, okay, we're kind of separating ourselves from the people we live next to.
I just have a comment about precedence. I'm not sure precedence is reason enough to go forward. I think it's a reason, but the more you use precedence, the more you use precedence. So you know what I mean? It just keeps going on and on. So that's just a comment about that. And then as far as the 6-foot versus 8-foot, 6-foot is a privacy fence. And I do worry about the 8-foot blocking the light into the morning light. I think they're on the east side. Is that correct? So that would be the morning sun. She wouldn't be able to see. Or it'd be the west. It'd be the evening sun. I'm sorry.
Sir, can I?
If you come up to the podium.
If you come to the
yeah,
podium,
thank you.
and I just say that because
Yeah,
of the
sorry,
TV and the
yep.
recording.
Right.
Sorry to do that to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'm sorry to put you all through this. No, The back of her house is a sunroom, and there's the deck there. The reason we're doing this is we can't have company over, we can't have our garage open without having an issue with the neighbor, taking inventory of who's there or what we're doing. And it's not just us, it's been the whole neighborhood knows what's going on. We do have other neighbors that were willing to come on our behalf if we needed them. We're trying not to do this. I'm not here to sling mud. The 8-foot section would start about 4 foot back on the garage edge and go up two more sections. So it would only be there because I sit at my kitchen. I'll be doing dishes in my kitchen sink and have somebody staring at me. Or as when Officer Larson came out, as Bob notes, he has seen her, she'll go from window to window to see what we're doing or who's on our property when we're there. That is the reason we've asked for this 8-foot section to be just the 3 sections there. This way, if she's on her deck, she can still see across the backyard. There's plenty of sunlight coming in her backyard, into her back windows. There's plenty there for that. But it prevents her from staring in our kitchen window or our garage or monitoring who's coming up our driveway, who's sitting on our patio if our friends or our family are over and we're trying to grill out. There has been a lot of conflict. There's a long history that goes back. We've had to have Marshfield PD intervene at least a dozen times.
Could you elaborate on that? I didn't know about that part.
Ma'am, the chain link fence, I had to throw that up because our neighbor, Mrs. Adams, who used to live behind us, caught the neighbor spraying Roundup on our raspberry bushes. And at the time, our children were still in grade school. And the boys would go out and pick berries. And that's one of the reasons we worked with, when Josh worked with the planning office, we worked with Josh. We paid, I think it was Vreeland and Associates. We paid somebody to come down, survey our yard, mark it out so we could put the chain link up. We worked with Josh. Josh worked with the city attorney, advised us to keep the fence 1 foot off the property line. This way, if there was any further damage from the neighbor, we would have legal recourse. And there has been, but we haven't pursued it. So what we're trying to do is just basically just get our yard fixed up, and we want to continue our nice vinyl fence. I know some people don't like it. I have no choice. I want privacy for my wife and myself, and we want to be able to protect our yard. We're putting money into our yard and our home.
And safety. The other reason why the chain link fence went up along that side, there was a chain link going from the back side of the garage that was only 3 feet. And went to the backyard and around. The whole entire neighborhood on my side had fence except for hers. We went up higher to the 6-foot chain link because our backyard neighbor, when we came home one night, told us that our neighbor was up on the roof of our garage trimming her tree without our permission. So we've had a lot of security, safety, and privacy issues.
Even the survey markers that we had put in, we paid to have that done. Officer Meeks had to come out and make a report because she was mad that we put the fence up and she stole the survey markers. And when he questioned her, she didn't know anything about it. When he came back to follow up, a couple days later, they were back, but they weren't in the right spot. And that's our Officer Meeks basically had told us at the time that we could have it resurveyed and have them moved if we want, and he would note it. And I wasn't going to pay another $500 to have my lot surveyed. This is just taking down the chain link fence that is obviously needs to be replaced. And I did it post haste. We had 2 young ones at the time, and I had to do it on a weekend myself. So the fence that we're putting up is being done by a fence contractor. It'll be installed correctly and everything. So.
And it'll match the one that we put up on the other side.
But basically the privacy issue, the reason for the 8-foot is this privacy. We can't, like I said, I can't leave my garage door open. Other neighbors have contacted us because she will call and complain about things that we have in our garage or what we're doing. That is an unfortunate thing. And I'm not here, I don't want to get into he said, she said. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because this is what I was told I have to do to get a conditional permit use, to put the extra 2 feet up for privacy. And that's all we're asking for. And we just want to be able to look out our window or have it where we don't have to have our shades drawn in the kitchen when I'm doing dishes. So that's what that is for. And no, the section that you're talking about, it's really It's not an area that gets a lot of sun. And I understand that you're concerned about it blowing over, but that's what we have insurance for. And if, God forbid, there is a storm that's that bad, it is what it is and we'll take care of it. But I can't plan my life on if a storm's gonna knock down my fence or if it's gonna do damage to my neighbor's yard. I don't understand this, where she said that we had she had property damage from something from our yard. There was never been anything like that. Never heard about that. There was never anything brought to our attention. We had storm damage,
From the storm in May.
in May. Our fence on the west side was down. Well, the neighbors, we left it down because the neighbors took down a big maple tree that was rotted. And so that they could get in and out without as much problem, the neighbors on the west side of us. And now that they are done and they're getting ready to rent that property out, we put our fence back together until we can get the fence contractor out to do this side and replace one post. That's why it looks a little wavy, and I apologize for that, but I'm not gonna pay him twice to fix something. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you.
That was enlightening. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor and a second. And we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor of passing the motion with the privacy as the issue, please.
Do you want me to do this one by voice, by
Yes,
roll
please.
call?
Yes.
Maybe, yeah, okay. Let's see, Mayor Teestrake,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Reilly,
Yes.
Commissioner Caprillion,
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Frederick,
Yes.
Commissioner Piles,
Yes.
Commissioner Meyer.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Going on to number 9, and thank you, Bryce, for your extra help with that. And you folks also, thank you. Number 9, staff updates.
I really don't have anything except that I would mention that, and maybe Bryce is going to touch on this, otherwise if I don't, the December meeting we have with the Plan Commission is on the 17th. And typically we've had the council at 6 o'clock and then the Plan Commission at 7. But that does mean if we have an application that needs to be approved ultimately by council, it can't be done that night. It won't be done until January. Bryce, we must be nearing the deadlines. Do we have anything coming up in terms of an actual land use application that we'll need to deal with that evening that you know of?
We have at least one that I know of, and then the deadline would be this Friday. I am blanking on what that item is, but there would be at least one. And then we were thinking of adding the text amendments that we've been kind of talking about.
Okay.
However, depending on what we do with the schedule and, meeting before council or after council, we could always look to push that to January. But yeah, at least one from an applicant.
Because the first council meeting in January won't even be till the 14th, and I just don't want to have somebody waiting from the 17th of December to the 14th of January for final approval of a CUP or something of that nature, if we can help it. So would the commission members be available on at 6 p.m. rather than 7 p.m. on the 17th if need be? Okay, I see heads nodding. Thank you. We'll keep in touch with you.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. And any items for future agendas? Seeing who would like to adjourn the meeting, I will. Okay, we are adjourned, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.